Hello, this is Hannah with Hannah Crafted Gifts, and I am finally coming to you with the tutorial for making the swap that I brought to On Stage in Houston just about a month ago. If you're watching this way in the future, it was On Stage 2024, and I made this, which hopefully looks familiar and functions similarly, although when I'm on camera it doesn't tend to work as well. See, I'm telling you, it's something about the camera. This one has also been to Houston and back and been played with many times. So let's see if I can get it to work. If not, there is another way, but this is the best way. Oh, there it goes. It's just a little stuck. So it says, life is better when you're crafting with Stampin' Up. And it slides, again, ideally, and much better, of course, when you're not being watched. With the trimmer blade, you can also pull it and push it from the bottom, but getting to use the blade is fun. So anyway, so I'm going to show you how I made that and see if I can remember how I made that, because even though I swapped them about a month ago, I made them like a month or two even before that. But I needed to make one more and wanted to share that with you. So let me go through the parts and pieces I've got here first of all. So this is my card base. It is 4.5 by 8.5, so a little smaller than the standard card base. Still the same 8.5 dimension, but instead of the usual 5.5 here, it's only 4.5. However, when it's done, it is going to be 4.25 by 5.5, the standard card size to fit in an envelope. But again, the base is just 8.5 by 4.5, so be mindful of that 4.5 side. And then I've already gone ahead and scored it for us. It's scored first in landscape orientation at 4 inches, and then again at 8 inches. So you have kind of this 1/2 inch flap. Here, I'll go ahead and fold this so you can see this 1/2 inch flap on the end here. And then that leaves you with 8 inches wide. And so then it's scored perfectly in half. So you can actually line up where you folded in that flap and the edge on your 4-inch score line there. So that's our card base. And actually, before I move on to other things, I'm gonna just give the dimensions as I go, I think. I'm gonna go ahead and stamp this as my first step. Again, I don't remember if these are the best order of steps from what I learned from making I made like 50 of them a couple months back, but if I'm wrong, you will learn from my mistakes. So let me pull in the one we're going to be making here. So I know I need to stamp in this very bottom left corner. So I've got my basic gray ink pad, and I am using stamps from the Crafting With You bundle, which we didn't know going into On Stage what was going to still be current and what was going to be retiring. Now we know because we've seen the new annual catalog that's part of On Stage. You get to be the first to see it. And I was very excited to see that it did carry over. So the people who I swapped with are still going to have something current to use for inspiration, hopefully. So I was just pulling out a sticky note because I am going to need to do some masking, because this has the full sentiment, life is better when you're crafting. And I just want to start with the life is better part. So I'm going to go ahead and ink up just the part of the stamp. Let me pull this into view a little better. It won't be just the part of the stamp that I need, but mostly just the part of the stamp that I need. But because it's really hard to do that with the script on life, I am going to, like I said, mask. So I did just get a notification that my phone is low on battery, so hopefully we're going to make it. And hopefully that didn't interrupt things. All right, so I'm going to kind of line up where I want this to land in the corner there. And I'm going to need to block off the when you're crafting. So I'm going to actually put the sticky part of the note on the stamp. And there's lots of different ways to do this. It's harder when your hand is shaking. Hang on. Sorry for the noise. Let me do it this way. Sorry if I'm a little out of view. I have to look carefully to get this part just right. So it's not going to stick as well to the stamp, especially that it's inked. But I'm going to try this instead of putting it on the paper. Let's see. Hopefully that'll hold for just the few seconds I need it to. Line this up straight, hopefully. All right. Moment of truth here in a second. When I did 50 of these, I did use the retired Stamparatus so that it was a little more foolproof. I was landing in the same spot every time. If it didn't come out just right, I could you know, do it again if it wasn't full coverage, but that's pretty good. Now I'm going to add my little dots. So I'm using the Stampin' Right marker with the kind of pen end, and I'm going to add 3 little, is that called ellipses? Dots. There we go. The middle one went a little wonky, so I got that fixed. All right, so now I can move on to my next piece. Let me close this up. We'll come back to stamping more later. But moving right along, I'm going to add on my DSP and this top strip. So both these gray strips are the same size. They are 1 inch by 4 inches. And so I'm going to add this top one. I already have those pre-cut as well. And then we're going to bring in the DSP, and then we're going to cut our slit, because this is a slider card, if you didn't already know, because it slides. By the way, I'm still undecided on if and how I'm going to use this video. It's possible I'm going to keep it with the talking. It's possible I'm going to just take the sound out and put music over it, maybe even like chop it down, speed it up, turn it into a reel. We'll see. We'll basically see how it goes. This is the first video I've done in a long time that's not just a live, where I have those kind of options, but I wasn't sure how I wanted to do this, so I thought I'd give myself those options this time. So I've got that top strip on right at the very top, lined up with my front flap, which, by the way, has this 1/2 inch flap. I guess that could be on your front or your back, but I like it a little bit more on the front. So I've got that on, and now I've got my DSP. So this is the Masterfully Made DSP. It was my favorite thing in the current catalog for 2020, what was it, 3 to 24? Gosh, I'm already looking ahead to like the next catalog, which is 2025, so I did think about the years. But anyway, it is my favorite DSP from that. And unfortunately, even though there are like quite a few, like a good handful of DSPs carrying over from the current catalog to the new one, this was not one of them. So I'm going to line this up in this top corner under my basic gray strip. Oh no! All right, first little issue. So apparently, this is why the Stamparatus was so great. I didn't put this far enough down, and so the DSP is going to cover that up. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to slide it over a little bit, and we're just going to trim it down. There we go. Crisis averted. All right. So my 3x3 strip will be just a little short of that. All right, so there we go. I guess I could have put this down first and then stamped, but then I could have run out of room for my stamp. So easier to trim the DSP, I suppose. So let me think if I want to bring out a paper trimmer. I think I'm just going to use scissors to trim this down. I'm using big scissors that are not Stampin' Up, because I find the Stampin' Up snips are best for the fussy cutting work. But for a big straight line, I like these big like fabric scissors, which obviously I use for paper instead. All right, so that's pretty smooth now. None the wiser if it weren't recorded on video. All right, so now I'm gonna cut my slit. Let me bring my paper trimmer, again, the inspiration back in here. So, you know, this is why we have the gray strips at the top and bottom, right? And I know the dimensions aren't quite right. This would be a very long card. I guess it could be like a slimline card if I was gonna make it like a true ratio to this trimmer. All right, so this is probably the trickiest part, is cutting the slit, and it's really not so bad, but let me give you the dimensions for this. So first of all, you're gonna have that, if you have your flap on your front, which again is what I'm doing, you're gonna have that folded in, folded under, okay? And you're doing all your measurements from this new outside edge with that flap folded in. So the edge that your DSP is on, we're going to line that up right over here to the 1 inch mark past the cutting slit. And so our slit on our card will be 1 inch in from, again, that edge with our flap folded under. And that flap is only 1/2 inch, remember, so it only comes to here. So since we're cutting over an inch, we're not going to cut into that. And then we're going to cut the slit from 1 3/4. So I'm going to bring it down here. It's going to be from 1 3/4 to 3 1/4. So I'm just going to land anywhere in between there, like around 2. And I'm going to push that in gently. And then I'm going to cut up to 1 3/4. It's okay if I go just a little past. And then I'm going to come down to 3 1/4. So I'm using this here to go from 1 3/4 to 3 1/4. All right, and I'm going to pull it back to the middle so I can pull it out. And now I have that slit there. Now, sometimes it doesn't go all the way through. You can see it didn't quite go all the way through. So let me try that one more time, push a little harder. So again, I'm going to go right back where I was, just push down a little more. And now I can really feel it pop and slide. It was just that bottom part. Okay. So now I'm sliding smoothly. So now I'm good to go. And there's that slit, just a little bit of a slit because we don't need it to go very far. In fact, we don't want it to go very far. So that's all good. So I'm going to set that aside. And now I'm going to work on the inside part of my card when you're crafting with. So let me pull out that piece to show you. So that piece is our inner insert. And that is 3 3/4 by 3 15/16. So it almost looks like a square, but it's not quite. It's 3 1/4 by 3 15/16. And you want it in portrait so that that slightly shorter dimension is going across the top and the longer dimension is going down the side. So you can see. Oh, am I wrong? Oh, I'm wrong. See, okay. This is one of the things to catch yourself on. Like I just caught myself on, so I was wrong. You want it in landscape. So it's going to be that longer dimension, 3 15/16 across the top and then 3 1/4 down the side. So there you go. Okay. And let me look here. So I wanted to check. So I do have my bottom gray strip, which again is 1 by 4. I have that lined up with the bottom here. So you can see, and it goes a little past because it's 4 inches instead of 3 15/16, right? And that's what's going to help it catch. You can kind of see by looking on the back, it's going to catch on the sides so that this insert doesn't go all the way in. It's also not going to go all the way in because we only cut our slider up to here, so it can't go past. The slit doesn't go further. All right, so I'm going to glue that on first, and that way I'll know where to stamp. And I'm using the multi-purpose liquid glue. That is my go-to. One thing I love coming out in the new catalog is the adhesive page, which is cutely called Sticky Business. It actually has a little like key code that tells you which adhesive is best for which type of project. So see, I'm just lining this up to make sure it's centered so that I have just a little bit of that gray strip showing on either side, because again, that's going to help it just catch a little bit. And also, I like centered, I like symmetrical. All right, so there we go. So let me bring my stamp back in. And this time I'm gonna have to use 2 stamps because I have the When You're Crafting, and I'm gonna add the With from With Love, again from that same bundle, just using the same bundle. So let me bring my ink pad back in. And because you kind of stamp as you assemble with this card, I wanted to show you, the stamping and not just have that pre-done. So you kind of see it start to finish. Obviously I cut and scored things, but otherwise you're seeing it from start to finish. And you get to see that important cutting mechanism of the strip. This pad is a little old, so I'm wanting to make sure that I'm really getting the ink. You can see it's one of those old linen pads rather than the firm foam. All right, so let me pay attention to make sure I mask what I need to mask here. I think I'm actually going to need 2 sticky notes this time. Where did I put those? Because I'm going to need one to block the is better and part of the word life. Again, let me do it this way. And then I'll need the other to do this kind of lower part where the F and L of the scripty life come down. Hope that makes sense. Basically, you're just masking anything that you don't want to have stamp. All right. Have to be careful because I have a little apostrophe above the your, right? All right, so this is going to come a little higher up, but not much. And still pretty left adjusted. Make sure it's straight. Now, I'm trying to remember when I did these on mass, like I said, I used the Stamparatus for sure with the stamping. So I actually probably did do the stamping before I started assembly, because I had like an assembly line going. So like I would do all of the one stamp and then all of the next stamp and then all of, the putting the top gray strip on and then all putting the bottom gray strip on or whatever it was. I would do all of one step for all like 50 I was making. But I had, my prototype or 2 that I had figured out all the dimensions and stuff on and the placement of the stamps to then, know where things needed to land. And because I didn't want to set up my Stamparatus for just the one card today, that's why I'm kind of stamping as I'm assembling so that I can know where to line things up, like with these strips and with the DSP and stuff like that. All right, so again, that turned out pretty well. And now I just have to stamp my width. I think I'll need one more sticky note mask for the love. I hate to block the love. I love love. Love is my top value. And one of the things I, no pun intended, love about Stampin' Up! Is I think it's theirs too. One of their values, and the one they usually list first, is people first. And to me, that is all about loving people. So they also, you know, the statement of the heart is to love what we do and share what we love. So love is a big value of theirs as well. All right, so we've got when you're crafting with. Let's do our last ... All right. And then we've got to say who we're crafting with, right? And so we've got the Stampin' Up! Now, for swaps, especially with other demonstrators, especially at these events, it is always highly requested and recommended that you use only Stampin' Up! Product, of course, and only current product, or again, as far as you know what's going to be current. Of course, at the time of onstage, everything in the still current catalogs was current, but it wasn't going to be for long necessarily because the change happens in May and the conference was in March. But you might wonder, people have always asked me, where do I get these logos from? Well, they are from Stampin' Up! Product. They are from catalogs. So every catalog has the Stampin' Up! Logo on the back. And I'm just going to kind of make sure that the top, side, and bottom space around this is equal. Because that's what we have on the bottom of the Stampin' paper trimmer. So yeah, so these come right off the back of catalogs. So it is Stampin' product. Sometimes I get them off of the postcards that are a supply item for demonstrators that we can send out for invitations. But those are black, and this one was gray from some catalogs. I guess they were retired catalogs, but I didn't want to cut out my current ones, but every catalog has these, and they're usually in gray, and so that worked really well with what I was doing, even though the one on the paper trimmer is in white, but I couldn't find any of those. So gray and white, you know, on the gray was the closest I could get. All right, so now we're going to put our card together, and I'm going to plug in my phone because it's giving me that warning again, and I really don't want to lose you. Let me plug in here. Thank you for your patience. There we go. All right. So here's my pieces. I think I've given you all the dimensions so far. I'm going to close my ink so I don't accidentally get something inky that I don't want to. All right, so here's just a couple more pieces we've got going. First of all, this is our mechanism strip. So it's small but significant. This is a 1/2 inch by 3 1/4. It could vary slightly, but if you're making a card just like mine, I do recommend do what I do because I know it works. So a 1/2 inch by 3 1/4. And so that is going to go, let me see if I can remember. That's going to go through the slit here, and I'm going to leave just a little bit sticking out. I just have to have enough sticking out to be able to put my little paper trimmer pull piece on. And so otherwise it's going to come almost to the inside fold, but obviously I don't want it to go over that center fold. I know it's a little hard to see white on white, but hopefully you can see it ends right there and my center fold is right there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put that, I think I'm going to put it all the way up on the top. Let me get some of this like paper shred out of the way. I guess maybe I need to change my blade. I'm learning about my paper trimmer while I'm creating a paper trimmer. How appropriate. I'm also going to just smooth out any roughness on this one because that'll help it slide well. Once your paper trimmer blade starts to go, you can get a little bit of a ridge and a little bit of that tear. All right, so I have to make sure I leave enough sticking out there. But I'm going to have it all the way up at the top of my slit. And then I'm going to have this lined up so that, again, the top of this, oh, let me get into view a little better. The top of this gray strip lines up with the bottom of the card base because I don't want it to go past there. All right, so I know that means that when it's all the way up at the top, which is going to mean closed or, you know, like this, right, that my strip is going to land just a little above, actually. Hopefully you can see that it's landing just a little above the card. I might be being more fussy with this than I need to be, but you know, this is how you make sure it slides well. So I'm going to put a little glue on the inside of my strip. I'm going to have to be very careful, as usual, but maybe even more than usual, to not have it go over the edge because that'll obviously slow down our slider. So I was kind of going over once with just a little bit of glue and then going over a second time to smooth it out so that it's less likely to gush over the edge. All right, so lining up, this is centered side to side. And then Again, the top of the gray strip is right up against the bottom of the card base. All right, so let's see, let's pretend that this is closed together. And obviously it's not finished yet, but then this would slide just like we want it to. We can see our whole sentiment, so we're good. All right, so now let me think about this. I think I can close it up, but I'm gonna wait because I don't have to yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my, these are the, I don't know what to call them. I guess like the ruler part, this clear part of the paper trimmer to simulate that. And so these are window sheet, and I've got one small piece. Hopefully you can see. Gosh, what can I hold it against so you can see it a little bit? It's hard with the, there we go. The glare actually helps you to see that. So this small piece is, looking at my notes, it is 1 inch by 2.5, 1 inch by 2.5. And then the big piece, pull that in view, actually goes off the end of the card. Hopefully you can see that. This is also 1 inch, but by 4.5. So 1 by 4.5 and 1 by 2.5. And this one has a slit in it. Hopefully you'll notice I have pre-cut that, and that is going to line up with the slit we've made here. Because again, we want things to be able to slide, and this is going on top. So let's do our bottom piece first. So this, I'm going to just kind of clean off the dust a little bit. This, I think, is best done with glue dots because then they're not quite as obvious to see. When you see it in the glare of the light, you can catch them, but otherwise they kind of disappear. You definitely wouldn't want to use liquid glue with this. So these can be a little bit troublesome. These are the glue dots that come with like Paper Pumpkin or Kids Collection kits. They're not as easy to peel off, especially when your nails are short like mine, as the ones that come on the roll. Here's an old pack, but same as the ones they currently sell, just new packaging. The ones on the roll, though, that you buy from the catalog or the online store, those are a little thicker, a little stickier, and so these are a little more forgiving. And I think because they're a little thinner, they disappear a little more. So we are going to use the thicker ones later for this slider mechanism, so that, again, hopefully you can use that to open and close the card. But hopefully you can see I've just put one in each of the 4 corners. And actually I'm gonna wait. Now that that's prepped, I'm gonna do this one first because I want to make sure they line up so that it looks like one piece. Even though it's 2, it has to be 2 for the sliding. So I'm gonna do the one on the top first. So let me get the, again, just kind of wipe off the dust. You get the glue dots on this. I'm realizing that I'm probably going to have to share this whether I like it or not, with the talking, because there are some things to explain. And these days, I do not have as much time to like type things out and even just get things posted. I have been behind. And of course, I don't know if you're like me, but the more behind I get, the harder it is to want to catch up. So I was a month behind from the holidays, the new year, and then that led to 2 to 3 to now 4 months. We'll see. I may never go back and get caught up on posts and such, but maybe I'll just start trying to keep up with the future. All right, so I have to make sure that, so that would be the wrong direction because my slit would land too high as compared to the slit here. So I want it like this, and I have to make sure that this little mechanism strip goes through my window sheet. So I'm gonna push that through gently, gently. There we go. I'm trying not to let my glue dots hit the paper to get stuck. All right, so give me a minute to focus. Making sure those slits are lined up is the most helpful thing. And then I can also make sure that I'm pretty well lined up on top and bottom. And then I'm just pushing down on those glue dots, not only to help them stick, but it helps them disappear. So I'm really well lined up down here. I'm a little off on the top, but that's okay because that's the easier part to trim. I don't know that, I guess I could have trimmed down there if I had to, but I'm just gonna trim that itty bitty bit of window sheet sticking up off, again with my big scissors. Hold please, Sarah says. If you ever watch Sarah Douglas, Stampin' Up CEO, on her Facebook Lives, that's like one of her things she says a lot. We all have those. I'm curious what mine is. I know one of them. One of them is when I do any unboxing. I'm like, I have a really exciting unboxing for you today. All right. Because I'm always really excited to see what I got. All right. So now I want to make sure those line up. And I am just going to line up with the bottom here. And then side to side, make sure I'm lined up with the top. So I'm kind of just sliding that under. Holding this as if it's closed. So make sure it's straight. Okay. So top to bottom, I'm lining up just with the bottom of the basic gray insert, and then side to side lining up with this top strip of window sheet. Sorry if I'm over explaining, maybe that's obvious, but I know when you're watching a video, it's not always as easy to tell things as it might be in person. That's why I love in-person classes. Although I don't think I would ever teach this in a class. I would teach a slider card, but I don't think I'd teach this one. This one is very fussy and special. All right, so I was just sticking my finger up under here to push down those glue dots because the window sheet doesn't go all the way up on this inner piece. It just goes up a little ways. It just has to hide when the card is fully open to still go underneath. All right, so now we've got our window sheet on. So I think we're almost done. I think we can go ahead and close this up. So let's slide it up and fold over this 1/2 inch flap from the front. And put a little glue, again, making extra careful not to go over the edge, especially the inside edge, because then that would make things hard to slide. So after I put the glue down with the fine tip end, I go back over it, not squeezing out more glue, but just kind of flattening it out so that it's less likely to squish out the sides. Might be kind of close on the top and bottom there, but that's okay. All right. All right, so now I'm going to just fold over and our edges match up just right. And it's nice. It's a pretty hidden closure, I think. Like from the back, very smooth. From the front, very smooth, especially because we have these pieces covering up. So there you go. And does it slide? Yes, it does. Very smoothly, actually. All right. So now we just have to add our little push and pull mechanism. So this, let me get my dimensions on this. This is 3/4 by 7/8. Now it looks smaller because I've rounded the edges. I did use one retired item to do this. We have other items that are probably current that you could do it with, but I used actually my envelope punch board to curve these edges. You could fussy cut them, but gosh, that would, even for me, be a lot for as many as I was making. I think we have a corner rounder. At least we did. I think there's a current one, but I have the envelope punch board to round my corners, so I did that. So it doesn't quite look 3/4 by 7/8 anymore. Or sorry, 7/8 by 3/4. I was probably doing that wrong, but hopefully you could tell. The short side is 3/4, the long side is 7/8, and then rounded all 4 corners. And then I've gone ahead and scored it, which you'll see better when I fold. But the scores are at 1/4 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch, and 5/8. So again, 1/4 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch, and 5/8. So let me go ahead and fold, and I want to do, first of all, a valley fold. Then I'm going to do a mountain fold, and these are so close together that it is hard sometimes to land them right on. They are very narrow little sections. There we go. All right, so I did valley, mountain, and I'm going to do another mountain, because this is going to be like the little raised ridge that we grab onto. And then another valley to finish off. So valley, mountain, mountain, valley. And if that doesn't make sense to you, valley is kind of folding away from you to create a valley. Mountain is folding towards you to create a mountain. I don't think I'd ever heard that before. And I was trying to think of a way to describe to people which way to fold on their score lines. And I was like, talking about it in terms of valleys and mountains, and then I realized that's how other people do it too. So hopefully that's intuitive for you as well. All right, I'm just taking off a little tear there, but see, there you go. So now we have, it's like a little U shape for our pulley, which goes this way actually. So this is where I'm going to use those slightly, I think, heavier duty and certainly easier to peel off glue dots. So all I have to do is peel back the tape. And then I'm actually going to stick it onto this because I want it to land like right in the corners of this little white flap. So you can just not even have to touch it, which is nice because once you get these on your fingers, the other ones kind of like disappear and roll up. These ones kind of stretch and, I don't know, get all misshapen and a little harder to use, at least to have things lie flat. Okay, that one I'm gonna have to redo because it kind of went over the edge. See, so once I touch this, it really pulls. Ooh, and it kind of ripped my paper. That's okay, that's gonna get covered up. So let me try one more of those. Place it a little better this time. There we go. Sorry if that's off camera. Oh no, my paper's really ripping. Yikes. Okay, third time's the charm. Now that paper's a little weak, but hopefully we'll be okay. See what I said about these being really sticky? I probably could have used the less sticky ones, but I cannot rip this more. No. Okay, I've never had this happen where the glue dots are like really ripping at my paper. But like I said, this is what happens on camera sometimes. I mean, it happens in life too, but I think we notice it more because we worry about it more when we're on camera. But we can usually make it work. In fact, sometimes we call them happy accidents because they, I think, force us to be more creative. What do they say? Necessity is the mother of invention, right? And, okay, this is really not working. So I'm going to try a new tactic. I am going to use my Take Your Pick tool to peel one of these off and place it on. So there we go. And got a weird little fuzz on it, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. All right, stick to the paper. Wow. All right. Well, this is the part of the video you can fast forward. Or you can watch me struggle and feel better about when you struggle, because we all struggle sometimes. And I don't mean like Schadenfreude, hopefully. It's not like enjoying my struggle. It's just like reassurance that we are not alone when we struggle. It's a universal human experience. I want it to stick really well to the paper so it'll let go of the tool, but it keeps pulling out of shape. All right, I'm gonna wear away this paper to the point of the mechanism not working, and then we have to take apart the whole card. Gosh, you hate when things go wrong on your last step. All right, you know what? Change of plan. Putting those glue dots aside, bringing these ones back in. So we're gonna have one really sticky one and one not so sticky one. In fact, we'll do one. I was gonna say we'll do a couple, but obviously this center part doesn't get stuck down. It's just kind of the side flaps. So I think we'll be all right. All right. So now that we've got the glue dots down, we're gonna place this just so that that white piece is hidden, so that hopefully no one knows the magic of how it works unless they watch the video or they've made a slider card before, because this is a pretty standard fold or interactive card design in terms of the mechanism. It's just maybe, I hope, a little bit more unique application of that to make the paper trimmer. And I know that like not everyone would appreciate a card that looks like the paper trimmer, but I thought if anyone would, it's going to be my fellow demonstrators. And so yeah, so there you go. So you can see that's a lot better looking than this one that's gotten like flattened several times in the travel it's been through. But we can slide it a couple times to really get it going smoothly, and then hopefully, let's see, are we going to be able to do it like this? Yay! Life is better when you're crafting with Stampin' Up. So there you go. And you still have space on the back to write your message if you want to. And you can slide it back closed. There you go. So thank you so much for your patience going through this with me. Let me just make sure I got all of the dimensions. I want to pull these back in so you can see them with their inspiration here. Sorry to knock the camera. But yes, I told you about the card base, the insert, the top and bottom strips, the inner mechanism strip, the window sheets, the DSP, the cutter. That is all the pieces. I even told you where I got the logo from. So there you go. There are are paper trimmer cards that I made for 2024 on stage in Houston. So if you got one of my swaps, I hope you liked it. I certainly loved getting back all the swaps that I got. You can check those out on my channels. If you like this video, please do like it, comment, and I'll try to reply. The most helpful thing you can do is subscribe, follow, and share with others who you think would be interested in this. So whatever you choose to do or not, I so appreciate your support, and happy crafting.